Assets recovered. New tonight on our news at 7. More than $3 billion in digital assets have been recovered as part of the ongoing investigation into the collapse of FTX digital markets. New details revealed in court documents tonight. Plus, a cargo vessel in distress near Abaco leaking heavy fuel oil in shallow waters has environmentalists raising the alarm. And scenes from the state-recognized funeral of Andrew Dud Maynard. Then in our news at 7:30, Junkanoo stakeholders are moving forward as they reach an agreement for the broadcast of the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade. Our news live at 7 starts now. Welcome to our news live at 7. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Kendino Knowles. Local environmentalists are sounding the alarm over a distressed vessel in the Abacos reportedly spilling heavy fuel oil and corrosive chemicals into the Atlantic. Our Jamila Mizik is following this for us and speaks with one advocate in a moment, but we begin with the more than $3 billion in digital assets that have been recovered in an ongoing investigation into the fallout of FTX digital markets. In a 500-page affidavit filed in the Supreme Court, the Securities Commission Executive Director defending the Commission's handling of the investigations and the assets. Berthany McDermott has the details.
As investigations into the fallout of FTX continues, an affidavit filed in the Supreme Court revealing the Securities Commission is holding $3.5 billion worth of digital assets retrieved from FTX digital market. The affidavit filed by Securities Commission Executive Director Christina Roll also revealing the recovery came with the help of former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried and Gary Wang days after the fallout of the company. A statement from the SCB asked if information gathered by the Commission may be provided to the U.S. debtors, given the dispute between the joint provisional liquidators and the U.S. debtors for rights to access to the records of FTX. To that, the court entered an order saying the Commission may only lawfully provide assistance to a domestic regulatory authority or overseas regulatory authority. It added joint provisional liquidators may cooperate with and provide information to the U.S. debtors by sharing with their representatives in a highly confidential manner. FTX filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in a U.S. court. However, FTX Digital Markets is not a part of those proceedings. FTX CEO John Ray III has accused the joint provisional liquidators and the SCB of working with Bankman-Fried to undermine the bankruptcy proceedings. In the 500-page affidavit, Roll went on the defense, saying the Commission has at all times acted in its capacity as regulator in good faith in the public interest, in compliance with the orders of the Bahamas Supreme Court. As for the assets, Roll says they are protected by the Commission, adding the wallet is being hosted by Fireblock. She added that while it didn't cost the SCB anything to set up the wallets, there will be an annual maintenance fee of $631,200. The affidavit added, at no time has the Commission colluded with any principal, officer, or director of FTX-DM, the provisional liquidator, or any third party to transfer digital assets owned by or under the custody or control of FTX-DM. Additionally, she said joint provisional liquidators are locked out of the digital market system, preventing them from accessing records. Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Thanks, Berthany. A Canadian man charged in connection with a $300,000 drug bust at Lynden Pindling International Airport has been denied bail. 34-year-old Marvin Musa of Toronto faces charges of importation, drug possession with the intent to supply, and conspiracy after police say over 149 pounds of marijuana worth $298,000 was found in his luggage on December 28th. Musa, who pleaded not guilty to the charges at his arraignment before Magistrate Samuel McKinney, was refused bail since Musa has no ties to the country. However, Musa's attorney, Dion Smith, said he planned to seek emergency bail in the Supreme Court. A trial is set for February 6th next year. Now to this. A distressed vessel in the Abaco stirring up concern in waters off South Abaco is reportedly spilling heavy fuel oil and corrosive chemicals into the Atlantic tonight. A local environmentalist is weighing in. Jamila Mizik reports.
MV One Go Traveler is in distress around Hole in the Wall, South Abaco. The vessel started taking on water. Adverse weather conditions hampered attempts to tow the vessel to a nearby sandbank to remove fuel and conduct repairs. Local environmentalist Joe Darville says this incident adds to the number of catastrophic incidents in recent times.
I think it's calling our attention because in all of these incidences, we were not prepared immediately to deal with them. And now, having had four in less than 4 years, it calls for a wake-up on our part as a country.
Darville shared this recommendation for the government.
They should hold all of these ships plying our waters to make sure that they are carrying sufficient instruments in order to, and equipment to deal with a catastrophe on the ocean until any other equipment, either locally accessible or from our neighbors to the north, come into place in order to deal with the oil situation.
The National Oil Spill Contingency Advisory Committee determined that ferrix, a slightly corrosive chemical used for water treatment and fertilizer, and heavy fuel oil was observed on the water surface. It was also determined that the vessel is in relatively shallow water, causing no extensive external pressure on the holding tanks containing fuel. Ocean booms were deployed and divers have been sent to seal leaking fuel vents on the vessel. A skimmer boat has also been sent to the site. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
And if you want to continue to follow that story, be sure and visit ournews.bs. The latest will be posted at Our News Bahamas on Facebook. With the country pausing to say goodbye to the late Edward Andrew Dud Maynard, leaders from across the political divide paying tribute and honoring the legacy and contributions of the nation builder today. Megan Shepard reports.
The late Edward Andrew Maynard, affectionately called Dud, eulogized today as family, friends, and political leaders in an official state funeral paid tribute. Prime Minister Philip Davis remembering Maynard as one that spoke his mind freely, but always for the greater good of the country.
The political theater and drama he created in the appropriate forum, the National General Council of the PLP, were emotive, entertaining, offensive to some, but honest and direct in its intent.
Former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram says he worked with Maynard in 2 general elections, noting that Maynard was dubbed as a master election coordinator.
It was a straightforward, no-nonsense line. He instinctively spoke his line. He claimed, as I have, that he didn't leave the PLP. Instead, the party changed and left him. Except in my case, they expelled me. He later found a home in the FM alongside his son, Charlie.
Leader of the Free National Movement, Michael Pintard, says that Maynard made invaluable contributions to this nation, putting country above politics.
I'm happy to join the Prime Minister to come and pay tribute to a man who has served on all sides of the political divide and made an invaluable contribution to our development. He has lived a full life.
Maynard died at the age of 82. Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
All right, what a legacy, and our condolences on behalf of the entire team at Our News to the Maynard family. May his soul rest in peace. Well, it's time now for your first look at temperatures, and meteorologist Greg Thompson is standing by in the Weather Center with a look across the islands. Greg, I know the weather is getting a little bit better. I know we had some really muggy conditions that are seemingly shaping up to be a lot better now, yeah?
That was a few days ago.
Yeah.
And we are now seeing a change, a very nice change. As a matter of fact, this is a nice way to end 2022. Very nice conditions on the outside right now, and temperatures are comfortable. They are in the upper 70s right now, 79 outside, with just a few clouds, and those temperatures will continue to fall off. Your winds out of the south-southeast at 9 miles per hour, and your feels like temperature, comfortable 76 degrees. Good night to get out on the outdoors. Temperatures around the islands right now, 76 in Freeport as well as in Marshall, Abaco. We pick up 77 in Alistown, Bimini. Over in Great Harbour Key, 78. Also in Nicholstown, 78 there. 77 in Governor's Harbour. Here in the capital, we are at 79. Central Bahamas, 78 in Kemps Bay, Arthurstown. Pick up 79 in Georgetown. Over in Copenhagen, San Salvador, 77. Deadman's Key, you are at 80 at this hour. and into the southeast Bahamas. 80 in Duncantown, Ragged Island. We pick up a string of 79s in Colonel Hill, Crooked Island, Delectable Bay, and in Abrahams Bay. Matthewtown, Inago as well, 79 there, and our very good neighbors to the southeast, Turks and Caicos Islands, you round out our temperature profile at 77. Satellite view, that weak trough across the northwest Bahamas, that has pulled out towards the east. High pressure dominating our weather right now, and that will continue to dominate our weather for the next several days. And that high will be responsible for keeping this weather system that's taking shape across the Gulf of Mexico from ever getting here. It should stall just to the north of the Bahamas. What the front is that is associated with it actually should stall to the north of us. Could see a couple of isolated showers across the Grand Bahama Abaco area by the end of the week and into early next week. But all in all, this is a nice way to end 2022. That's your first look at weather. Stick with us and look at your extended forecast and what you can expect for the new year.
Still to come on our news, Junkanooers eager to return to the streets of Grand Bahama for the first parade in several years. Plus, a former prime minister may have given the cowbells a break, but he says he's confident the Saxons will make a mighty return for New Year's. And from the second city to the silver screen, a Bahamian filmmaker shares details about his latest upcoming project set in the Bahamas. It's all coming up when Our News returns. Stakeholders in the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade coming to an agreement after a meeting with the Prime Minister. Our Megan Shepherd, who is following this, has more from the Culture Minister, who says all parties have put their differences aside for the greater good of the country. The story is coming up in Our News at 7:30. But for now, some good news to report tonight for the nation's second city as Junkanoo is returning to Grand Bahama for the first time in years. The island has not seen a parade since 2018 before Hurricane Dorian. The official order of entry for the New Year's Day Parade was announced today.
On the parade, we have coming out Sting, then we have Swingers, there's Showtime coming out, then we have Superstar Rockers immediately after, we have the Women Them, the new group, then we have Classic Dancers, we have the Bushwhackers, then we have Platinum Knights, and the last group will be Kingdom Ambassadors. So we have 9 groups prepared, who've been preparing for a very long time.
Superintendent Alfonso Pinder says there will be several road closures that will start at 3 p.m. on January 2nd until 1 p.m. on January 3rd.
If by any means you are attending the Junkanoo, we're asking you to use Adventurous Way, and we understand that there will be no parking along Adventurous Way in order for easy transition of traffic.
And after suffering a crushing defeat in the 2022 Boxing Day Junkanoo Parade, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis says the Shell Saxon Superstars will make a comeback this New Year's. The former Prime Minister has rushed with the Saxons for years as a cowbeller, but this year the Saxons placed 5th following a performance that was disappointing to many.
Beat for us again, the Saxons this week. We will rebound. We will come back. We have been this road before. In the 90s, we had 4 fourths in a row. We did not get 5th because there were only 4 groups. And we bounced right back from 4th and won. We will do it again. We are soldiers. We take our defeat with respect, with honor, and we return as great warriors.
The Saxons will be the third A group to hit Bay Street on New Year's Day with the theme Commonwealth of the Bahamas in celebration of the 50th anniversary Golden Jubilee. And remember, you can catch continuing live coverage of the 2023 New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade right here on our TV channel 212 and streaming live on the Our News and Alive Facebook pages. Our live coverage from Bay Street begins at midnight on January 2nd. When our news comes back from the break, we turn our spotlight to stories making headlines across the world as chocolate lovers beware. Hershey's is sued over claims metals were detected in some dark chocolate products. Plus, on this day in history, the man who Shirley Street was named after was born in 1727. And later, Freeport is the setting for a new film project. A Bahamian filmmaker gives us the scoop when our news continues. This is Our News. Welcome back. We turn our attention now to stories making headlines across the world. UK Defence Minister Ben Wallace says government is currently reviewing the possibility of introducing restrictions on travellers coming from China as the country battles a surge in COVID-19 cases. This week, Italy, Japan, India, and the United States all announced mandatory testing for travellers from China, where cases are on the rise after Beijing's decision to lift zero COVID policies. Wallace saying the UK had no plans to bring back testing for those coming into the country, but said government would consider curbs for arrivals from China.
There are hundreds of countries who are not seeking currently to do that, and I think it's very important at this time of year. What we do is we make sure that those countries that don't have COVID can travel freely to the United Kingdom and vice versa. There are thousands of British tourists right now who will be flying back to the UK, and then of course making sure we target whatever restrictions we do where there are places of greater concern, not just with COVID. We do that already with other medical conditions that if pandemics break somewhere else, then of course those are powers we have. But at the moment, I think we keep it under review. We look at the traffic and where people are coming from into this country, and then no doubt the Department of Transport will make their views known.
Chocolate manufacturer Hershey has been sued in the U.S. over claims the firm is selling products containing harmful levels of metal. The lawsuit alleges the firm misled consumers by failing to disclose the quantities of lead in 3 dark chocolate bars. Hershey's did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Some studies suggest that the antioxidants and relatively low levels of sugar in dark chocolate could help prevent heart disease. However, the lawsuit points to recent findings by U.S. magazine Consumer Reports, which tested 28 dark chocolate bars for metals. The magazine alleged that 23 of them, including chocolate from Hershey, Godiva, and Lind, contained comparatively higher levels of metals. And Brazil waking up to its first day without footballing legend Pelé today, revered as the king who won 3 World Cups and was widely considered the greatest footballer of all time, died at the age of 82 in Sao Paulo on Thursday. Overnight, Pelé's face shone on buildings across the South American nation and landmarks were lit up in his memory, fans taking to the streets dressed in his iconic number 10 shirt. Brazil's government has declared 3 days of national mourning.
What he has done, not just winning 3 World Cups, like you said, oh, how difficult it is. It's just the contribution and goals, and it was, I think, it was a new thing when he came up. But I was not born when when he was playing, but it's like a good movie, no? With the legacy, when after many, many years still we are talking about him, still are talking about a good movie, a good book, is because you were so good.
Still to come on our news, today in history, find out interesting facts about the day that was December 30th as we take a look at the life and death of the man who Bannerman Town, Eleuthera, was named after. Plus, Greg is back with your extended weather forecast. And then in our news at 7:30, a widow questions the mysterious death of her husband in Canada. Our Marlena Leonard has her story when our news continues. Welcome back to our news. It's time now to turn our spotlight on events that shaped the day that was December 30th. Take a look. On this day in Bahamian history in 1727, Thomas Shirley was born in the Bahamas to Governor William Shirley and Francis Shirley. Thomas succeeded his father as governor of the islands in 1769 and served until 1774. Thomas Shirley died in Bath, England at the age of 72. In 1864, Alexander Bannerman, who served as governor of these islands from 1854 to 1857, died in London at the age of 76. Bannerman Town, Eleuthera, is named after him. Then fast forward to this day in 2019, a group of foreign-born divers who were banned from the crawfish season sued the government. The legal action came nearly 2 months after the agriculture minister insisted the government will enforce a Bahamians-only policy in the industry.
These styrofoam cups as of July 1st, 2020 will not be on the shelf anymore. As of January 1st, they will be banned from import. However, the plastic cups will still remain.
As the new Environmental Protection Act came into force, residents were preparing for the plastics ban, which took effect 2 days later. Checkout aisles in the food store now look totally different, with plastic shopping bags and other plastic items removed from shelves. And finally, in 2021, then Commissioner of Police Paul Roll announced that a man was assisting police with their investigations into the murder of Leon Griffin. Griffin, the husband of former Cabinet Minister Melanie Griffin, was killed back on December 23rd that year. A young Bahamian filmmaker is bringing a movie set to the city of Freeport. The venture, which is set for April, is just his latest project. Our Joshua Williams has the details.
Meet Reginald Gibson, a local upcoming writer and filmmaker. He's also a master's graduate from Full Sail University. Gibson is bringing his talents home to the island of Grand Bahama. He's worked and interned on several documentaries and films that have been featured on networks like Netflix. The 23-year-old executive producer shares how he got into screenwriting and filmmaking.
My undergrad, I knew that I wanted more for myself, something more free where I could write without restrictions, and so that led me to take the leap of faith and go to Full Sail University, where I completed my master's in film production.
Gibson is currently involved in optional practical training at Holmes Rock Studio based in Florida. It was here where the idea originated to bring a film shoot to the island of Grand Bahama. Details of the film are private, but the project is estimated to cost between $2 to $3 million and will provide temporary jobs to 60 to 80 locals for set designs.
It's vital, honestly, because a lot of people are unemployed. unemployed over here, that's the first thing. And then who wouldn't want to work on a film set? It's really fun, fast-paced but fun.
Mr. Gibson encourages aspiring filmmakers to believe in themselves and to pursue their dreams.
If you really believe in something, don't let nobody sway you from that. Just know that consistency is key. If you keep working towards something, you can eventually get there, no matter how hard it might be, no matter who say you can't do it.
Gibson can be found on social media and LinkedIn at Reginald Gibson. Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
All right, thanks a lot for that, Joshua. To watch that story again and for all of today's top stories, visit ournews.bs. Well, that's going to do it for us in News at 7. Joining us now is our Talia Hall with the latest headlines. Talia, we are counting down to 2023.
Yes, Ken, what, one more day left?
Right? But hey, I didn't get to ask you, what is your New Year's resolution? I think I said that, patience, right?
I'm still thinking about that. I'm still thinking about that. I asked you that question last night. Do you have any as that?
Yeah, remember I said, patience. I have to work on it.
Yes.
So
I'll
that's
have
my
an
resolution.
answer by Monday.
Okay.
All right?
I'll remember.
Okay, fair enough. Well,
right.
We've got the full scoop on that agreement reached between all stakeholders in the upcoming New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade. The details are straight ahead. The way forward, new tonight on Our News Live at 7:30. Junkanoo stakeholders reach an agreement for the broadcast of the New Year's Junkanoo Parade. Details are straight ahead. And Grand Bahamians are set to celebrate the return of the full Junkanoo experience on that island. We'll tell you what you can expect on January 2nd. And a widow says she won't give up that easily as she continues to search for answers 5 months after her estranged husband died in Canada. And if you're heading to the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade and concerned about parking, you may want to listen up. We'll tell you how a group of entrepreneurs are driving a solution. Our News Live at 7:30 starts in a moment. Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Talia Hall. Stakeholders in the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade coming to an agreement after a meeting with the Prime Minister. Our Megan Shepherd has the details.
The Prime Minister, Minister of State with responsibility for the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, Miles Larota, the Junkanoo Corporation of New Providence, BTC, BCB, and officials from Alive coming to an agreement on how the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade will be broadcasted. Youth, Sports, and Culture Minister Mario Bolag says the Prime Minister's intent is to ensure that Junkanoo will be enjoyed by everyone, nationally and internationally.
He just wanted to reiterate to both RTV, Cable Bahamas, and Broadcasting Corporation, BTC, and Alive, that it is important that they work together for the strength and unity for the greater development of Junkanoo and all national events.
Bolag says all parties put their differences aside for the greater good of the country.
I think the only problem that occurred was that, of course, we all understand the fundamental rights and agreement when it comes to sponsorship and the competitiveness of one competitor. And I think that was set aside, and the understanding is that the parade, which is governed, and the TV rights, which is owned by the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, that both stations will broadcast the event come for New Year's, and the official name of the parade is agreed. That is the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, powered by Alive.
Branding will also be adjusted.
It was only fair that that if Alive is the major sponsor, that their major competitor branding should not be seen on the physical parade itself. We also know that the Broadcasting Corporation has its own rights to obtain sponsorship in its own broadcasting, separate and apart from Cable 12, and so therefore they have the rights to obtain sponsorship and have whatsoever advertisement of any sponsorship that they obtain, and so that was agreed upon. But just that on the stage, on Bay Street, there would be no branding other than that of Alive or any other sponsor that is sponsored by the JCNP.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Megan Shepard.
And in case you need a ride to Junkanoo, One Sister Trio has you covered with a Junkanoo Uber service. We'll tell you all about it coming up later on, but first, it's been several years since Grand Bahamas had a full-scale Junkanoo parade due to Hurricane Dorian and the COVID-19 pandemic. But come January 2nd at 5 p.m., residents and visitors alike will have the opportunity to take in the full experience on Piners Way in Freeport. Organizers holding a press conference this afternoon in Grand Bahama to announce the details.
If any indication of what happened in New Providence, with a large crowd we saw there, we anticipate the same to happen in Grand Bahama.
Organizers say spectators can expect a grand experience on Piners Way come January 2nd. Chairman of the Grand Bahama Junkanoo Corporation, Andrew Bean.
On the parade, we have coming out Sting, then we have Swingers, there's Showtime coming out, then we have Superstar Rockers immediately after. We have the Women Them, the new group. Then we have the Classic Dancers. We have the Bushwhackers. Then we have Platinum Knights. And the last group will be Kingdom Ambassadors.
Cultural Affairs Officer at the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture, Monique Larry, says there are 47 vendors on board.
The tickets are here on sale at the C.A. Smith building. It's only $10, which will give the opportunity to all persons in Grand Bahama to view the parade.
And as it relates to safety and security, while the parade is a no-bottle zone.
We will also have rooming teams identifying troublemakers and those with bad intentions. The police intend to ensure that all persons, participants, and spectators alike have a joyous and safe parade, free of incidents.
Officer in charge of traffic, Superintendent Alfonso Pinder, announcing several road closures due to the parade, starting 3 p.m. on January 2nd.
We're asking you to use Adventurous Way, and we understand that there will be no parking along Adventurous Way.
Officers attached to Operation Ceasefire confiscated a handgun yesterday in the Kemp Road area, police say shortly after 2 p.m. Officers were on routine patrols through Clark Lane when they observed a man run to the back of a home after seeing them. While police caught up with the suspect, but after a struggle, he still managed to get away. Before he escaped, police observed him throwing an object over a wall. Officers searched the area where the object was thrown and found a gun. Investigations are continuing. As the country sees record murder numbers, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis says he's waiting to see the government's plan to deal with the pressing issue. At last count, the murder count was at 125.
One murder is more than enough. You try to minimize or keep it as minimal and negligible as possible. I await again to see what plans the government have to bring forth to deal with the murder, and I think all Bahamians should do their part in trying to keep crime to a minimal.
The former Prime Minister's comments came after Police Commissioner Clayton Fernandez said to expect crime fighting to be taken to another level. Dr. Minnis says he has been asking for the government's crime plan but hasn't been getting a definitive answer.
They have said they had one. We've been asking, and I've been asking in Parliament for a very, very long time. But in spite of whatever they did or plan, the crime rate, robbery, assault, murder continue to rise, and that is unacceptable.
A warm evening as we head into the last weekend of 2022. Meteorologist Greg Thompson is in the Weather Center with a look at our current conditions. Good evening, Greg.
Yeah,
One more day.
Yeah, thanks. Well, yeah, we right there. 24 hours and we'll be moving into 2023, and what a way to end 2022. Beautiful conditions outside our studios right now. Temperatures are very comfortable, 78 with a few clouds. Southeast winds at 8 miles per hour, and that's bringing in some of that warm tropical air mass, and your feel slight temperature at 76. Satellite view, quiet across area. That surface trough that was across the northwest Bahamas has exited the area. High pressure is in charge, and that is keeping us a little breezy across the central and southeast Bahamas, but the winds expected to fall off across the central Bahamas and still remain breezy in the southeast. But we do have a system in the Gulf of Mexico that should transfer itself across the Florida area. High pressure will keep that at bay, and we're looking for very nice conditions to end 2022 and start 2023. That's your quick check at weather. Stick with us. I'll look at your extended forecast today.
Still to come on our news, a mystery in Canada as a widow still has questions surrounding the death of her estranged husband 5 months ago. Plus, an environmentalist raises the alarm on the environmental implications of the MV One Go Traveler distress near Abaco. And later, where's the legislation? Members of the Rastafarians say they are patiently waiting on the legalization of marijuana. That's all coming up when our news returns. Local environmentalist Joe Darville says the MV One Go Traveler being in distress adds to the number of incidents in recent time of catastrophes affecting our waters. The vessel is in the area surrounding Hole in the Wall, South Abaco, and started taking on water, according to a statement from the Ministry of Housing and Transport.
I think it's calling our attention because in all of these incidences, we were not prepared immediately to deal with them. And now having had 4 in less than 4 years, it calls for a wake-up on our part as a country to make sure that we have the necessary materials in hand to immediately respond to these particular incidences on our ocean.
Darville had this bit of advice for the government.
They should hold all of these ships plying our waters to make sure that they are carrying sufficient instruments in order to, and equipment to deal with a catastrophe on the ocean until any other equipment, either locally accessible or from our neighbors to the north, come into place in order to deal with the oil situation.
5 months ago, Bahamian native Theo Burrows died suddenly in Canada over the summer, leaving a wife and 4 children behind. Official reports say he died of a heart aneurysm, but his widow feels like they haven't gotten the whole story. Marlena Leonard reports.
It's a story that leaves more questions than answers. 5 months ago, Lakeisha Burrows had an unexpected visitor at her door. A lone police officer brought the shocking news that her estranged husband, Theo Burrows, had died.
That did something to me. I'm like, no. How? How he died? Who identified his body? Because I didn't. Where did he die? Because I don't know. And that was the last time I spoke with that officer.
And Burrows says when she tried to get more information, even a confirmation on where she could find her husband of 12 years, she hit a series of dead ends for days. But as the answers started coming in, she tells us they only brought more questions. She says she was told they never did a toxicology study on her late husband. And when she and their family doctor requested to see the pathology report, she was told,
she said, we will provide it to you, but it takes a while. It takes up to 6 months, 6 to 9 months. And I'm like, foolishness. And I still don't have a full report as to how he died.
When asked what she thinks happened to her husband,
I honestly think that my husband was drugged. Just how they keep shutting me down every time I go to the police or go to the media about it. They shut me down. I feel like he was murdered and they covered up.
Burroughs also shared the chilling advice that left her in fear for her life when she started asking questions.
If you keep your mouth, you keep your life.
But the grieving widow says even though things weren't perfect and the couple was separated, she won't give up that easily.
Why should I let his death just go just like that? Without having a closure. And that's my children's father. I've been with him for 16 years. I just want to know the truth. I want justice for Theo Burroughs.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
When Our News comes back from the break, members of the Rastafarian community standing up for their sacraments, questioning when the promised marijuana legalization legislation will be brought to Parliament.
Plus, coming up in sports for tonight, another milestone for Buddy Hield as he sets the record for the fastest three-pointer in NBA history. Details ahead in sports.
Three sisters band together to create a transportation solution for the upcoming New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade. We'll tell you how you can catch a ride. That's all coming up on the other side of the break. This is Our News. Welcome back. The local Rastafarian community once again calling on the government to protect their religious sacraments and promote human rights for all. Our Joshua Williams visited the Rastafarian camp today.
Rastafari.
Respect our sacraments. That's the cry of the local Rastafarian community to the government. High Priest for the Rastafarian community in the Bahamas, Rithman McKinney, says it's not just about Rastafarian rights, but rights for all humanity.
When it comes to our sacramental rights, that's constitutional. But what we want the government to do is respect and protect our constitutional rights when it comes to our sacrament. And that's, they don't need to go in Parliament or deal with the legislation when it comes to our sacramental rights. We want the government to respect human rights. And we just had a human rights celebration on the 10th of this month through United Nations Human Rights Day. And that's what we want the government to respect the Rastaman constitutional rights.
One of these sacraments involves the use of marijuana for medicinal, ceremonial and recreational purposes. This year, the community has been pushing for Parliament to take steps toward the legalization of marijuana. McKinney says they have been involved in conversations with the government and are pleased with progress made so far. However, they patiently continue to wait.
I still commend the government for pushing it also, although they say the middle of this year and then they say the last month in this year.
In early December, Attorney General Ryan Pinner revealed the Davis administration would not be presenting the promised marijuana legislation before the end of the year, adding the government is still working on it. Reporting for Our News, I'm Joshua Williams.
Bahama native Buddy Hield as he and the Pacers roll to victory. Here's Marcellus Hall with a check on sports.
All right, thanks, Natalia. Welcome to our sports, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. Buddy Hield and his Indiana Pacers, they've been playing well as of late. Buddy has been playing extremely well as an individual. In fact, a record coming his way, and the game is right now in the first couple of seconds, 3 seconds into the ball game, as a matter of fact. Buddy Hield's launching a three and making a three, fastest in NBA history. Details right now to take a look at last night's game. Grand Bahama native Buddy Hield and his Indiana Pacers at home taking on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Pacers, they play on Saturday when they take on the LA Clippers in Indiana. And that is your look at sports here on this Friday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Italia.
Still ahead on our news tonight, need a ride to the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade? Well, a new company may have a solution. And don't go away just yet. Your weekend weather planner is straight ahead as we count down the days in 2022. Stay with us. Welcome back to our news. We're looking forward to clear skies for the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade this weekend. Greg, what kind of conditions can we expect over the next few days? You know, Boxing Day was a concern with the weather, but now for New Year's Day, I'm hoping for something positive.
Well, your wishes have come through. True. Yeah, high pressure is dominating our weather. We are ending the 2022 year very nicely, and we're going to begin 2023 with warm temperatures and very little in terms of any rainfall. Junkanoo is going to be very nice, comfortable, maybe a little warm at night, but we expect those temperatures to be still comfortable though. We do have, as I said, a ridge of high pressure in charge across our area. That ridge is centered really across Cuba at the surface and in the mid and upper levels. There's another ridge to the north of that, and that will continue to dominate our weather. There is a frontal boundary that's actually taking shape across the Gulf of Mexico and the southeast United States. But the ridge across Cuba is going to keep that at bay. We expect a weak front to just stall just to the north of the Bahamas, maybe an isolated shower or two across the Grand Bahama, the Abacos and the Bimini area. But that boundary will continue to pull out towards the north and east and away from us, and we're looking at very lovely conditions for the next several days. As a matter of fact, high pressure will be in charge before we see another frontal boundary, which will sometime occur sometime on the end of the week, Thursday, Friday, maybe, and we will see maybe an isolated shower or two. Forecast map, quiet across us, some spotty showers across the area, but those showers will continue to weaken, and that frontal boundary, as I mentioned, in the Gulf of Mexico, that will stall across the northern portion of Florida and eventually fall apart. And as I said, high pressure will dominate our weather over the next several days. Taking a look at our boating forecast for northwest and central Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Small craft caution still in effect. We still have those swells out there. Rip currents out there as well. East to southeast winds at 10 to 15 knots, seas running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. And of course, we expect those swells to be up to 6 feet, mainly along the Atlantic exposed shorelines. Low tide will be at 8:07 tonight. For the southeast Bahamas, that caution flag in effect for you guys down there. Winds a little stiffer, easterly 15 to 20 knots, and your seas will be running 4 to 7 feet over open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. In your 7-day forecast, quiet weather expected throughout the week, actually, and into next week. Of course, Sunday is New Year's Day, and temperatures will be in the low 80s, nighttime temperatures in the 70s, and it's going to get a little breezy by Tuesday, Wednesday, but no real weather expected for the new year.
Much, Greg. Well, now that we know the weather is shaping up to be pretty decent, need a ride to Junkanoo? Well, One Sister Trio has you covered. Stania Davis says she and her sisters decided to offer rides to and from the Junkanoo parades to help those who want to attend the parades but don't want the hassle of finding parking.
Parking is a problem at any day going downtown, so I figured it would be like a really good idea if people had a ride to Junkanoo from Junkanoo. They could leave their cars at home safely. They didn't have to worry about parking, about walking the extra long distance. So I figured it would be like, you know, a good, cool thing to do and, you know, meet people and make money at the same time.
She says the response for Boxing Day Junkanoo was overwhelming, and persons have already started calling to get a ride to the New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade.
There were mothers who allowed me to take their children there, the teenagers there, and bring them back safely. There was someone who has a fear of driving. So that was perfect. They wanted to go to Junkanoo, so you know they had a ride there and they had a ride back. Someone calls a mother who was actually ill, but she wanted to go to Junkanoo. She had a daughter. It started raining. She needed to get back home. So it was very interesting.
All right, sounds great. Now for more information, you can contact Pin Stanmere at telephone number 451-6767. And remember, you can catch continuing live coverage of the 2023 New Year's Day Junkanoo Parade right here on our TV channel 212 and streaming live on the Our News Bahamas Facebook page. Our live coverage from Bay Street begins at midnight on January 2nd. With that, we thank you for joining us for Our News Tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Natalia Hall. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening.